Welcome to San Diego State University. The university wants to ensure that all of our students, faculty, and staff are aware of the university's policies and procedures relating to sexual harassment and sexual violence. This is a serious and important topic. Regardless of our gender, the majority of us at some point will know someone who experiences sexual violence. You are all now part of the Aztec community, and we are all responsible for keeping each other safe and for supporting each other in times of crisis. The following presentation will provide you with important information regarding San Diego State's policies and procedures, as well as information on sexual violence prevention and awareness. Please note that although some of the interviews in this presentation will present the person experiencing sexual violence as a female, everyone, male, female, those who identify as transgender, and those who do not identify with a gender, can experience a sexual assault.
We have a big problem, and we need your help.
It's happening on college campuses, at bars, at parties, even in high schools.
It's happening to our sisters and our daughters,
our wives and our friends.
It's called sexual assault, and it has to stop.
We have to stop it. So listen up.
If she doesn't consent, or if she can't consent, it's rape, it's assault.
It's a crime. It's wrong.
If I saw it happening, I was taught you have to do something about it.
If I saw it happening, I speak up.
If I saw it happening, I'd never blame her. I'd help her.
Because I don't want to be a part of the problem.
I want to be a part of the solution.
We need all of you to be part of the solution. This is about respect. It's about responsibility.
It's up to all of us to put an end to sexual assault. And that starts with you.
Because one is too many.
San Diego State University does not discriminate on the basis of sex, gender, or sexual orientation in its education programs or activities. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 and certain other federal and state laws prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex, gender, or sexual orientation in employment, as well as all education programs and activities operated by the university, both on and off campus. And it protects all people regardless of their gender or gender identity from sex discrimination, which includes sexual harassment and sexual violence. To understand our policy, it is important to understand what sex discrimination is. Sex discrimination is any adverse action taken against an individual because of gender or sex, including sexual harassment, sexual violence, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking. Before we can talk about prevention, it is important to understand that sex discrimination can take many different forms. The different forms of discrimination are defined in detail in Executive Order 1095, which can be found online. Pursuant to our policy, sexual harassment is defined as any unwelcome verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that includes but is not limited to sexual violence, sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and indecent exposure. Sexual violence is a form of sexual harassment and means physical sexual acts such as unwelcome sexual touching, sexual assault, sexual battery, rape, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, perpetrated against an individual against his or her will and without consent, or against an individual who is incapable of giving consent due to that individual's use of drugs or alcohol, status as a minor, or disability. Men as well as women can be victims of sexual violence. Sexual violence, including sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking, violate university policy as well as criminal law. Sexual assault is an attempt to commit a violent injury on a person because of that person's gender or sex. Sexual battery is any willful or unlawful use of force or violence on a person because of that person's gender or sex. Rape is non-consensual sexual intercourse that may also involve the use of threat of force, violence, or immediate and unlawful bodily injury or threats of future retaliation and duress. Any sexual penetration, however slight, is sufficient to constitute rape. Acquaintance rape is a rape committed by an individual known to the victim. Stalking means a repeated course of conduct directed at a specific person that places that person in reasonable fear for his or her or other safety and causes the person to suffer substantial emotional distress. Domestic violence is abuse committed against someone who is a current or former spouse, current or former cohabitant, someone with whom the abuser has a child, someone with whom the abuser has or has had a dating or engagement relationship. Dating violence is abuse committed by a person who is or has been in a social or dating relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim. Warning signs of domestic violence and dating violence include checking the partner's cell phone or email without permission, monitoring where the partner is going, who is going, and what they are doing, repeatedly saying or doing things to make the partner feel inadequate or inferior, extreme jealousy or insecurity, isolating the partner from family and friends, explosive temper, mood swings, assuming control over access to financial resources, telling the partner what to do, possessiveness, or physically hurting the partner in any way. An important element of sexual assault is whether or not there is consent. Consent means an informed, affirmative, conscious decision by each participant to engage in mutually agreed upon sexual activity.
If you wanted to go out to the movies with your friends, or they wanted you to go out to the movies with them, they don't just drag you along. They say, do you want to go to the movies? And then you say yes. It's the same thing. You're having sex with somebody, you say, do you want to have sex with me? And they say yes, or they say no. And then you respect that answer.
Consent must be voluntary and given without coercion, force, threats, or intimidation. Consent requires positive cooperation in a particular sexual act or expression of intent to engage in that sexual act through the exercise of free will. Consent can be withdrawn or revoked. Consent to one form of sexual activity does not constitute consent to other forms of sexual activity. Consent given on one occasion does not constitute consent on another occasion. The fact that two people are or were in a dating or sexual relationship does not constitute consent to engage in sexual activity. There must always be mutual and affirmative consent to engage in sexual activity. Consent to a sexual act may be withdrawn or revoked at any time, including after penetration. Once consent is withdrawn or revoked, the sexual activity must stop immediately. Consent cannot be given by a person who is incapacitated. For example, a person cannot give consent if they are unconscious or coming in and out of consciousness. A person is incapacitated if they lack the physical and/or mental ability to make informed, rational judgments. Whether an intoxicated person is incapacitated depends on the extent to which the alcohol or other drugs impact the person's decision-making capacity, awareness of consequences, and ability to make fully informed judgments. Sexual intercourse with a minor is never consensual when the victim is under 18 years old because the victim is considered incapable of giving legal consent due to age.